Hello everybody and welcome to Level 5, the place where we like to talk about movies, TV shows, video games and comic books. I hope you guys are doing all fabulously. Now of course I had to get another review done and dusted, and this time around we thought we'd do a episode 1 review for a cartoon that I hold true and dear to my heart. I also kind of like doing episode 1 reviews, it's kind of fun. So today we'll be diving in to the very first episode of Bakugan Battle Brawlers. Bakugan Battle Brawlers is an anime, technically. They got Americanized for the Western audiences, and it's about a game of throwing cards and throwing balls that turn into monsters, but there's a lot more going on than that, because the Bakugan themselves come from a completely different dimension. There's a lot of stake, and there's a lot of drama, and there's so many cool characters in Bakugan to see. But for this review, we're going to be just diving in and reviewing, of course, the first episode. And this will be your typical review, so I'll explain what happens in the first episode, we'll then, of course, rank it, and I'll give my final thoughts at the end. So with that being said, let's dive in as we review Bakugan Battle Brawlers. Episode 1, Bakugan the Battle Begins.
You gotta fight for what's right before it's gone. This is Bakugan.
We start off with Dan, our main character, explaining Bakugan. One day, cards rained down all over the world, and together the kids made a brand new game out of it. That's when the little Bakugan balls were released from the cards, and they realized that things were going to be changed forever. Then we're quickly introduced to the team. Dan, Naruto, Shun, Julie, Runo, and Alice. Now, as we are in episode 1's review, I'll talk about the theme song real quick. So if I don't mention the theme song again after this, that'll be why. The theme song is absolutely fucking fire. Because some form of rock theme that ends with Bakugan. It's so fucking dope. It's a really good introduction song, honestly. The intro song is beautiful. We cut to Dan arriving home, and he heads straight upstairs to get his stash of Bakugan, and we see that he's got red Bakugan. Dan picks his 3 and then heads back out. He cycles to the park, and that's where we meet the bully of the show, Shuji. We get some banter between the two before they start their battle. Both the boys hold up these cards and call out for the state field to open. A glyph opens beneath them and freezes time around them. We see birds freeze in midair and stuff like that, and then they enter the battlefield. And we quickly get straight into the battle. They throw cards down on the ground which grow massive, and Shuji starts by throwing a Bakugan, and when it lands, it grows into a gigantic monster. We learn Subterra means Earth as Dan throws his Bakugan and calls out for his snake. The snake and insect fight each other. The battle changes when Shuji commands his gate card to open, and they're the big cards on the ground, by the way, and they can affect the battlefield, which increases or decreases a Bakugan power level. Whoever has the largest number is the stronger of the Bakugan. Shuji wins the first battle, and now Dan has one less Bakugan that he can use. This time round, a crab Bakugan is used by Shuji versus a humanoid bird-looking thing by Dan. Dan then commands his gate card to open, giving him the upper hand. Both of them are now down to only 2 Bakugan left. Shuji throws down another gate card, which is the cards that grow really big. They both summon brand new Bakugan, and then we're introduced to an ability card, which are basically like extra power-ups, if you will. And this one's specifically used by Dan, specifically used for his Bakugan, and Dan to win again. Dan gets really cocky as another gate card is thrown down, and Shuji is left down to 1 Bakugan, which is his bug one. Dan reuses his humanoid bird, and Shuji shows off one of his ability cards, and Dan counters with his own and wins the battle. The battlefield disappears, and time goes back to normal. There's this snot-nosed little kid who hangs out with Shuji. I think they're related, and he basically gives Shuji a bit of a bollocking for losing the fight. Then we cut to Dan bragging about his victory to his online pals, the other battle brawlers. Runo, one of the girls, nags him for his rank, and they start to bicker, whilst Julie congratulates him. Marucho, the smart one, kind of suggests that he take on the number 1 ranked Bakugan battle brawler, that being Shun, so then he can boost up his power ranking in the Bakugan brawler community. Then we cut to Shun, who sits there thinking about Vestroya, the home dimension of the Bakugan. We get a monologue from someone who explains Vestroya is separated into 6 elements, and names them as well. We have Subterra, which we would call Earth, Chaos, which is light, Darkus, which is dark, Aquus, which is water, Ventus for wind, and Pyrus, which is fire, which Dan's element of choice. We meet Drago and Naga, 2 dragon-like Bakugan. Drago mentions Michael, and Naga makes a portal to flee. We then cut back to Dan, who runs into Shuji, who demands a rematch. So they open up their fields, and Shuji has Darkus this time round. A tortoise-looking Bakugan is summoned, and Dan summons his Minotaur Bakugan, but on a different card, forcing Shuji to summon a scorpion-looking thing. They fight, and Dan opens the gate card, increasing his Bakugan's power level, and he loses. Shuji laughs at his victory. We cut to Naga, who reaches for the center of Vestroya. 2 orbs are placed in the middle, one being the power of infinity, and the other being the power of silence. Naga states he wants to absorb both energies, and wants to conquer everything. He tries to absorb the power, but it doesn't work, and he's sucked into one of them, and it causes a ripple effect. Bakugan go mad, and the worlds start mixing. Drago in the pirate space meets the darkest Bakugan, which he shouldn't be seeing. Then we cut back to Dan in mid-fight, and he sees a vision of the 2 Bakugan fighting. He snaps out of it just to shake his head, and sees the snake versus Shuji's Dark Scorpion. He releases his gate card at the same time, and both their ability cards open and release a new Bakugan. Drago and the Bakugan he was fighting appear, and Dan starts hearing Drago speak. Drago tries to talk some sense into the darkest Bakugan with no effect. Drago unleashes his signature move, Boosted Dragon, and the battlefield completely disappears, Shuji whining on how he lost once again. Dan looks at the new Bakugan in his hand, wondering about what else is going on. Back at Dan's house, Dan examines the Dragonoid. That's Drago's actual official Bakugan name, by the way. And he nicknames him Drago. He contemplates on whether he actually heard the Bakugan speaking, and he's really confused. Dan then goes online to speak to the other brawlers and tells them about what happened with the talking Bakugan. Seems like a lot of people have heard Bakugan talk recently. Dan sits and wonders if there is more to Bakugan than they all realised. This is the perfect way to introduce new watchers to the world of Bakugan. We get straight into the action. Nothing's actually over-explained on how the game works. They just play the game. And slowly you learn how the game works by watching them. Sure, some weird random alternative universe stuff happens, building up future plot points and stuff. On top of all that, we get a talking Bakugan, which we didn't see up until that point. Dan not knowing what's going on really helps drive this as well. Bakugan aren't meant to talk, which makes Drago kind of unique and special at this point. We get mentioned to Michael and, someone who we don't know anything about yet. We have 3 different elements in play. A game, which is a lot of fun, and it's different to that of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, with Drago explaining how the elements work. That's like the only major explanation that you get, is the elemental side of things. And that's fine, you need to understand some things. There are 2 matches in this episode. We get a good grasp on how the game is played. I love how the time freezes and you enter a new battlefield area, which is awesome. It explains why there is no one around playing Bakugan just randomly, and why parents are so oblivious to the game. It also makes it so there are no people being late or anything, so you don't have that boring trope. The Bakugan are great, monstrous looking creatures. They look very unique and interesting. There are duplicates of some of them, sure, but there are different colours due to the elemental changes, which makes unique ones like Dragonoid and Naga really stand out. The characters are also nicely designed. Dan rocking this red outfit, which stands out to the other characters. I do like how this starts showing off other brawlers, but only enough that Dan still has the spotlight. Dan is a great character. He's really cocky, sure, and he has the protagonist trait of thinking he's the best, but in this episode he does win both fights. So we definitely see his talent. His ego isn't overbearing or annoying either. He has a great attitude for the game, and you can see how determined he is, and I love his reaction to the talking Bakugan. Shuji is just meh, he's a bully, a way to have Dan win, I guess, and Dragonoid is amazing looking dragon, quite bulky near the legs, going sleek up to his head, with reds and yellows, his arms are his wings, and he looks powerful, menacing, and that boosted dragon move is really sick.
You gotta fight for what's right before it's gone. This is Bakugan.
So when it comes to ranking this, I have to give it a 5 out of 5 for plot. This has a really good plot, a very good introduction to the storyline. We have a lot of things going on, and like I said, it dives straight in to the action. It uses the game to explain the game, which is a lot of fun. And then, yes, of course, it explains some things like the way that the elemental system works and what they're called, but it's to push forward the storyline of like Drago appearing on Earth and things, which is really well done. We also get some nice introduction with Dan. We do have other Bakugan Battle Brawlers within the team, there of course being 6 characters, but we only focus on the one. You could say he's like the main character, but as the show goes on, we obviously do get introduced to other characters, but just for the first episode, it's nice to only focus on one character. And of course, Fire, and when it comes to anime and Americanized animes, Fire just seems to be the dominant thing as well. Obviously, with Pokemon, it's Charizard, with Digimon, it's Greymon, and with Bakugan, it's Drago. Drago's also really cool too, and very well designed, and I think that he became like a really good standing sell point for toys, obviously, because that's the whole point of this anime, was to sell toys, and I think it's really well done. For characters, I'm going to give a 4. We only get a handful of characters in this, which is fine, but we don't know much about them. They're really fun characters. Shuji is just an absolute asshole. Grade A absolute moron. And that's fine, but he does play the bully really well, and I like that. And Dan's an overconfident, cocky prick, like I said earlier, but he does, he puts his money where his mouth is because he's good at the game. He does win 2 battles, technically, because the second one is kind of undecided whether he won or not. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So characters I give a 4 only because we don't get much detailing on like Drago or Shuji. We don't get really much backstory on Dan, really. There's not really much backstory for many of the characters, which is kind of sad. But again, this is only episode 1 and they wanted to kind of flesh it out. So characters only loses the point because we don't get much backstory on all of the characters introduced in this episode. Like Dan, we know nothing really. We know his parents are there, but that's about it. But honestly, I do think they do a really good job on kind of giving us enough of the characters, hence why it's got a 4. I think they did a really good job. For visuals, I'll give a 4. The battlefield looks great, unique sort of background. It shows off, or if you actually pay attention to the background, it actually shows off all of the 6 elements like of Vestroya in their Vestroya like habitat sort of thing, which is really cool. It looks great. Some of these monsters look really well designed. I absolutely adore Drago's design. Also a big fan of Falconeer and Saurus, I want to say his name is, the Minotaur looking thing. Some of these monsters are really well designed. They're really gigantic creatures as well, which is great. Love the cards. Love the clothing ideas for Dan and Shuji. Very Japanese, but not Japanese. It's kind of hard to explain. Not much of an editing issue either. I don't see many like massively flawed issues or anything. Honestly, yeah, a really good, visually stunning. I take away a point mostly because it's, I don't know how to word it. It's very, I don't know, 2000s, I guess. And I think the animations and stuff do get better as time goes on in the anime. But for now, yeah, it's a 4. For entertaining or entertainment value, I give a 5. It's always progressing. This just keeps on going and non-stop. The very first thing we do with Dan is he goes, gets his Bakugan, then has a battle. Then the guy rematches him, and then boom, he gets a new talking Bakugan. Whilst in between all that, we learn how the game is played, and then we also learn there's a different dimension. Then we learn there's a guy called Michael involved. It's just non-stop. It's always progressing, always ongoing. It doesn't want to stop. It just keeps on flowing, and then it just crashes. And it ends with the credits, and it's great. It's fucking phenomenal. And because it's always ongoing, you're always entertained. The battles are really fun. Certain abilities you're new to and all this stuff. And yeah, it's a very... I'm going to explain this via showing, not a telling, and that is absolutely great. And I love that. So yeah, for Bakugan Battle Brawlers, overall total ranking, I'm going to be giving it an 18 out of 20. Honestly, for an introductory episode, that is really, really good. I absolutely love doing these sort of things. So definitely let me know what other episode 1s I should definitely be reviewing down below in the comments. It could be cartoon, could be live action. Episode 1s, man, let me know. So yeah, definitely Bakugan Battle Brawlers, episode 1 definitely gets a total of 18 out of 20, and I think that's well deserved. It's progressive, it's ongoing, it's entertaining, action-packed, there's some explanation, but it's tastefully done because it's continuing on the storyline as it's explained to you. Cool characters, there's jokes in there, and it's a new world that you get to explore within one small little package of 20 minutes. What can't you like about, like, it's hard to pick something you can't hate. Like, it's so hard to pick something you have to hate about this. I can't even get my words out right now. So yeah, overall rating of 18 out of 20.
You got a fun for watch ride before it's gone. This is Bakugan.
Honestly, I can't really say much that hasn't already been said in this video, other than Bakugan Battle Brawlers was one of the biggest stable points in my childhood growing up. I was already in love with things like Bakugan? What am I about? I was already in love with things like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, and things like this, and Bakugan just added to the mix. I started collecting the toys, I had actual Bakugan figures with the cards and everything. I played the Bakugan Battle Brawler game, which I still have on PS3 now, and it just became such a stable point, and is one of the inspirations for the Ozmon Library channel. So yeah, definitely, absolutely, Bakugan Battle Brawlers holds a place in my heart. So maybe I was a bit biased on the rating and the review, but that's just my points and feelings. That's the whole point of me reviewing something, right? So yeah, definitely absolutely love with this, and I honestly believe that Bakugan is a really good anime that everyone should check out, especially if you love things like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! It kind of mixes those two kind of aspects together. It's a collectible card game within the series, just like Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it has that kind of camaraderie and teamwork like Pokemon. Maybe Digimon's a better example. Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of mesh together. And of course, they come from a different world, which is obviously Vestroia, so you get that mysterious, dimensional, like, kind of like conspiracy mystery type feel to it. I personally love Bakugan Battle Brawlers, and like I said, I'm happy to continue reviewing episode 1s of different, like, TV shows, or if there's a specific episode of Bakugan Battle Brawlers you want me to review, do let me know down below, and I'll do my best to review them. With that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. Just a quick apology, I've been really hot and sweaty in this video. I'm currently recording this video in 33 degrees in the UK right now, especially in my house that has very small ventilation. So I apologize if I'm just a bit hot and flustered throughout this entire video. Thank you for bearing with me. We're with passion, everybody. I do love you all, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Bye.